Hello, this is Victor at RestoreYourMercedes.com. This video is for Hunter in Ohio. Okay, the lighting conditions might not be very beautiful, but what we're here to talk about is this is the engine harness from a 1995 C36 AMG. Now, a very long harness, lots of different processes to rebuild this. I just finished with it, and I want just to go over with what was done. Basically, all the wires obviously disintegrate and the harness is not available. So the car is very beautiful, and I saw pictures. It is such a shame just to throw it away because the harness is no good. So I don't do many of these because it's extremely labor intensive, and the way I do it is like, you know, it's as close to factory as I can get to, but it is a lot of work. So each and every piece, well, 99% of pieces, soldered connector to connector, like each and every pin is removed and old wire removed, and the new wire is soldered directly to the pin. So that's kind of problematic to do, but it's the best way of doing things. Like these are not difficult. As you can see, pins are like visible, but that is a pain. Along with injectors, yes, you can buy replacement injectors, but you still have to, you know, the connectors you can still solder. You still have to solder to them and whatnot. So anyway, let's start with this main connector. So basically, there's a bunch of glue over here. There's a bunch of stuff that holds this connector and wiring together. So right now, I squeezed in lots of silicone in it, and then I've wrapped it. So it's going to settle. It's going to become a nice rock solid seal. Everything is wrapped with cloth tape. It's you know, it's basically the same tape as you find on the original one. So all, like I said, each and every pin was removed, and individual wires connected to the pin and ran all the way to the consumer. So like this one, for example, this is the power from mass airflow sensor connector. These kind of things, you also have to do plastic molding, plastic welding to keep them back together, because you actually have to do the lobotomy on these. You have to open them up to get to pins, because they're under, I mean, it's all molded piece, so you can't, you know, get to it. So as you can see, plastic welding, it turned out to be pretty well. Looks pretty nice, so I'm happy with that. Original looms, original sheetings were left just to keep wiring harness to look as original as possible. So that's how I tried to do it. As you can see, this is original loom that it came with. Going further down, then we basically have a couple of segments over here. You break it down in segments. You have one segment over here, okay, you got second segment over here, and you also have segment over here, and then you have power lines. Okay, so it's like 4 segments. That's how I break them down. So you have to work only on one segment at the time, otherwise you're gonna just screw it all up. There's so many wires all over the place. As opposed to, for example, a couple of these wires, they travel to the center of the harness and they go back out. So you have to keep trace of where they are. Otherwise you're gonna make mistakes where wires would go. So injector is the same way. As we see, injectors come out the same exact location where they would come out with original harness. Now injectors, I did mark them. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it, this is number 6. So it's like number 6 there. Now let's see what this one is. This is number 5. See if I can zoom on. This is number 5. Okay, but again, you want, this is number 4. You look at it like that. This is number 4. Well, I mean, it's not very clear on the camera, but you won't be able to plug them in any differently, because they can only reach to their own injector. Like this particular connector cannot reach to injector number 6, because it can only reach to 3 or 4 or 2, but obviously it's going to be tight. So obviously number 4 is going to be closer to number 4 than to number 2. So those are the injectors. Now we have switchover valve over here. That's for your resonance, intake manifold resonance actuator. So injectors, again, original sheeting. This is the Camshaft Advancer. It just says cam. I replaced the connector here. Temperature switch, engine coolant temperature sensor. This one is actually split. 2 go to the main connector there, and 2 go to this connector. One portion of it is for the air conditioner circuit, and the other portion is for the engine control module circuit. So that's different than just like all 4 go straight to that connector. It doesn't. It's like split. So you have to keep that in mind also, because 2 wires will follow that segment, the other wires will go out and just reverse themselves backwards. So that's that. The coils, so obviously rewired. I did also mark coils 1 to 6. These are for cylinders 1 to 6 and so on. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's black marker, but you can see it in daylight, but they're marking us on it. See, this is 3 and 4, 3 and 4, and then you got 2 to 5, number 2 and number 5. So these are the coils. Switchover valve, Camshaft Advancer, the temperature switch. This is the ground. You have EGR valve over here. You have air pump valve over here. As you can see, I put little notes. AC compressor, and oh, air pump. Oh yeah, that's right. I was like, what is this? This is an air pump. This is a very heavy gauge cable here because it draws lots of current, so a very thick cable was used the proper way so it doesn't overheat. Further down we have this is like, I believe this is alternator signal. This is an alternator or starter, one or the other. I'm not sure actually. I don't remember. No, not mine. No, it shouldn't be that. It's like one of the other grounds or positive. And oil level sensor. Some of them, like I said, go here. Some of them go there. Here is another like ground, I believe. Again, I don't remember exactly. I need to look into diagrams. I know this is positive, the main power. Then we have the last segment here, which is our cranks and knock sensors. Crank, cam, and knocks. So now for these are different type of wires. All of the wires I use are Teflon. These are military grade cables. Very nice, durable stuff. So we have this crankshaft position sensor, extremely important. Again, I have to actually open up these connectors to get to the pins. So as you can see, they were opened up and welded together. This is marine grade heat shrink, so it shrinks it so no moisture gets in there. It has glue to it. So this is all expensive stuff because you just want to do this thing once and right. As you can see, there's a little bit of glue there. So and then a couple of stages to get from big shrink wrap to smaller and smaller wrap. So that's that. So we got crankshaft position sensor. We have our knock sensor number 2. This one right here is intake air temperature sensor. Then we have camshaft position sensor and knock sensor number 1. So basically this is going to cover it. I mean, I did also test each and every pin according to the wiring diagram. Now I do have one issue with it, like, you know, the pins and all that stuff. So you got what they do, and obviously on my laptop I can actually see the diagrams. There is one issue with diagrams, and I've seen this before, but I just keep doing it as original as it was intended. The air pump connector, the diagrams show it just shows me that I have to put like pin number 1 into number 2, number 2 into number 1. So basically in diagrams they're swapped. Now it is openable. You can open this connector and swap the wires, but I did it exactly how it came from the factory. I took one out, closed the connector, rewired it, put it back in. I didn't swap them as the diagram shows and calls for. I think there is a mistake in the diagram. There's an error. That's what I usually do. I do one wire at a time, so I don't mess around with whatever diagrams tell me, because that's aftermarket stuff and this is original. And the worst can happen really is that the air pump blows a different direction. Instead of blowing into the exhaust, it's gonna pull exhaust gases out. So, but again, this is how it was from the factory. So I left it how it is in the factory, so I didn't screw around with that, because if it was working before, then that should have been the right way of doing things, factory way, not just some sort of diagrams that you follow that are aftermarket. Some of the sheetings, like I said, these are all original. They're a little stiff, so you probably would want to warm them up a bit, but again, I wanted to keep them for originality. So as you can see, the harness looks pretty nice, except for these wires. These are just a little different colors, so unfortunately there's nothing I could have done with them. But these are coaxials actually. These are military grade coaxial cable, so it's just great stuff. I mean, the original one had very thick insulation. This one is very thin, but this is very strong stuff. Coaxials, you have to use coaxials because it has shields. It's shielded on the outside, so signals do not get any kind of interferences going through the computer. If it's unshielded, then interferences can enter, so shield protects them from interferences. So yeah, this is the heavy gauge cable, like I told you. This is pretty thick. Again, this is all Teflon stuff. And these covers you send me, that really doesn't, they don't really help me much, so I'm just gonna leave them in the box as they are, where you're basically gonna put the covers in first and then lay the wires in whatever way you want wires to be. So it is what it is. So that's basically all the wires come out at the exact same location as original harness. The distances, the lengths, and everything is just preserved exactly, not longer, not shorter, and everything should bolt right on, and the car should just run as perfect as it would be with the original factory harness. Alright, so I'll wrap this up. So basically this is all done and ready to be mailed out. Like I said, I did check each and every pin to make sure that each and every connector corresponds to its all proper pin. Everything checked out fine. And also do one wire at a time. I don't cut everything off and then just figure out where they have to go. All the wires are done one at a time, and on top of that, they'll double checked. But again, except for that very connector, which is not super critical, but again, you better, it's just whatever diagram shows me. But the rest is, as you can see, I got the pin outs here, and it's like injector 1, camshaft, MAF, crankshaft, the camshaft position, electromagnetic pump, resonance manifold valve, ground, and stuff like that. So the list goes on. You got crankshaft position, injectors, EGRs, and so forth. But you still need the diagram so you can see the actual valve, and you want to know number 1, number 2 on the actual connector, because it just says, okay, the injector, but which one on the injector, number 1 or number 2. So injectors are ground, they're pulsating on the ground. Activation is ground activated, and the power goes here, so this is always positive, and the negatives come to the connector. So number 1 is always positive, number 2 is the activation. So number 2 is actually the one that you're supposed to check on this connector, otherwise it's not the right thing, even though it should still work if you swap them. But obviously we want to, because it's just electromagnetic valve, but obviously we want to do the right thing. So everything's done 99.5% to factory spec because of these things. The wires are different. Alright, so this is it basically. This is Victor at HistoriaMercedes.com. 95 C36 AMG wire and harness rewired and ready to be mailed out to Hunter in Ohio. Thank you for watching.